Blakebeard the Blackhearted returns today, and I'm uploading this video a little before he comes back out to talk about what he's good for and what he brings to the game, because he's not just a hero that buffs cannonball damage, which is way more powerful than you might imagine. He actually brings a team perk to the game that is really, really fun to mess with, and that is Blakebeard Stash. Many of you guys might have seen this before, but to recap, eliminations have a 5% chance to uncover one of his little treasure chests, and if you search them, you'll get peg legs, coconuts, and cannonball grenades. So, to talk about what this build is actually good for, I would recommend using this as an entire loadout in and of itself. Obviously, it's a team perk, but what I mean is replace all of your weapons, don't use any ranged weapons. You now have a peg leg, a coconut, and cannonball grenades. It is not a coincidence that you have 3 hotbar slots for all of these items because they have covered everything. You got close ranged, high damage from the peg legs. They have basically a regular crit build on it, even though they don't have perks. They have that 30-odd% chance to crit, and they do a ton of damage when they do. You've got cannonballs, which get buffed by Blakebeard, which do extra damage to the enemies, and of course, give you that range damage and group damage that you might be needing in a fight, and the coconuts to keep you alive. As for the loadout that you want to use for this, that can vary wildly. There are a couple of ways to do it right off the bat. You can put him in the lead, and as you can see, he buffs the cannonball damage by now 40% instead of 20%, and it converts Rosie to fire 25 cannonballs instead of the 125 bullets. It does a lot of damage, and he converts them into cannonballs, which I do believe explode and makes them very, very effective. And of course, if you wanted to use him in the lead, that is something you would definitely want to be making use of, because otherwise there's no real reason to use him in the lead. And it's important to talk about all of the different pirate heroes. So I'm going to kind of skim over Swash and Buckle. I'm going to link my Corsair video in the description below. These two are really Jack's Revenge and Corsair heroes on their own. You can totally use them in the support here. You can see that I don't. Going Coconuts is a little bit redundant though, because either of these would basically be dead perks, because I'm not really suggesting you use swords or pistols in this, especially since the peg legs are actually classed as clubs. So you don't really need either of these. However, you do need a third pirate hero to activate this team perk, and I don't believe hybrid counts. He's technically classed as a stowaway. In fact, I'm not even sure if I have him in here. Upon checking, I can confirm that I do have hybrid, and because he's, you know, in the lore of this game, technically a stowaway on their ship, he's not actually a pirate, so he won't buff this, which is okay. I mean, his extra, you know, length on affliction damage isn't really going to be helping you much here at all, so I'm not really too worried about that. For this loadout, I actually went for a more general approach. Because you need 3 heroes to buff your ability here, I went for a ninja. You don't need to use Dimmock Mari. There are tons of options in this game. You can do whatever you want. You could do a normal soldier loadout and then just have Blakebeard Stash as your support. You can do whatever you want. But what I like to do is I like to use Dimmock Mari because her abilities are awesome. She has Smoke Bomb and a huge Smoke Bomb cooldown, so you can spam these a lot. I don't use this a ton in the gameplay because I really want to show off the team perk. However, that will get you a lot of progress in the normal mission. Throwing stars don't really need much bonus. That's why they're so good. They just give you nice range damage that's completely free. Cannonballs are pretty rare from these Blakebeard stashes, so you're going to want to use something to give you some range damage. And then Dragon Slash is, in my opinion, probably one of the strongest hero abilities in the entire game, and certainly probably the strongest ninja ability. Obviously, there are things to say like Lynx's kunai, but that's her kunai, not all kunai in general. Dragon Slash is very, very versatile and gives you a ton of damage. That's why I actually went for Wings of the Dragon and Tail of the Dragon. You can totally go for Endless Smoke, which gives you a much bigger smoke bomb, and of course, you can also go for Alchemist Sarah, who gives you medicinal fumes. However, you do have coconuts, and you are going to get a ton of them from these Blakebeard stashes. They are not scarce, so healing shouldn't be a problem. And of course, don't forget the coconuts do give you a 16% bonus damage. I don't think you need him in support to get that 16% damage bonus from the coconuts. However, if he doesn't give you that damage bonus from coconuts, then that totally gives us a reason to keep him in this team perk. Editing Beast coming in way later to say, yeah, apparently you actually do need him in the support to get that 16% bonus. I'm surprised I never really knew this or thought about it, but I suppose this isn't a loadout I use often, so there you go. You do need Going Coconuts to actually get a 16% bonus, so you can definitely use him to avoid a dead perk. Now, to talk about Blakebeard again, cannonballs are not just limited to those, you know, purple rarity cannonballs that you get from his stashes. There are certain weapons in the game that seem to buff this damage. I'm going to start with the broadside because it's kind of the bad news. From what I could tell, it didn't increase the damage at all. I didn't try to attack an enemy the second time around because the first time I tried to get any damage out of this thing, I couldn't actually see any numbers. And in this screen here and in game, I couldn't actually see any difference in the DPS. And I trust that because it changed for the weapons that it did change. Now, the two that I was focused on are the two from the main set. So first and foremost, Steamroller, I can't see any difference. I can see the 75,000 DPS, and if I go to somebody who doesn't have a Vast Mateys, let's see, Lynx Cassandra, nothing here should be, well, faster explosion. So this is a shotgun loadout. Nothing here should be buffing pistol damage whatsoever. It's still 75,000. However, if I check the Bowler, which is 95,000, and the Cannonade, which is 283,000, when I go back to a Vast Mateys here, you can see I don't have any faster explosions. I don't have the launcher damage bonus. I only have a Vast Mateys and everything else in this build, which mostly buffs Dragon Slash and whatnot. You can see that the DPS actually goes up by about 20%. If you consider that I have damage perks on these launchers, it's not exactly 20%, but 106,000 is 10,000 extra DPS with purple perks. And then the Cannonade, being a much higher DPS weapon, gets a much bigger boost. It's about 27,000 extra DPS. Again, that's to the base damage. It stacks separately from the 90% damage buff I have here, so it's not going to be as much, but it is something, and it totally does more. I did get some in-game footage, so you can see that it definitely does more damage when you have them in the support, and that is a really, really nice thing to have. If you're going to be using this as your primary, you can totally use him to buff it. And that's especially fun because I did make a video recently on an awesome loadout for rocket launchers to more than triple your magazine size, so if you want to use the Cannonade for that build, then, you know, link to that video in the description below. You can check out that video down there, and of course, you should be throwing him on the support if you're using the Cannonade. Now, there are other weapons that this may affect, like the Jabberwocky, but I figure since the DPS does display on screen, if you're interested in using that weapon, you are more than welcome to check yourself. You can totally get them from the event shop, and that'll be a great thing to do. So, all around, this is a really good build to go for. I did want to mention, sort of as an afterthought, I should have brought this up earlier, that there are other ways to mold this. For example, if you want to increase your club damage by 50%, put her in the support. That used to be a really good loadout for dungeons. I'm not certain if that's going to be the greatest nowadays. There are a lot of great builds. Link to the description below of 5 awesome loadouts that I've shown recently that do not include this one, and you could totally try this out if you want. But yeah, increasing that club damage by the most might be your best bang for your buck if you're really wanting to get the most out of this stash, but it's not really a really high level team perk. That's why I was using it in a lower level mission here. This isn't something you should be bringing to the 140 zones. We got destroyed the first time we ever tried to use this in those zones, and it's just a tough way to go. So you might want to keep this to the lower level zones. I did use this in like a storm shield defense, like that one time. I very rarely help people with storm shields, but if you are doing a storm shield, you can save on a ton of ammo by just using this team perk instead. And I do want to mention something as well. Now, as I said, this is very malleable. I'm going to let you guys figure out a lot here, but another good way to run this is to not ignore the heroes I mentioned earlier. You could take the Swashbuckles Keelhaul and the Buccaneer Jonesy, put her in the lead, and then Buccaneer maybe replacing Swab the deck or something, or just put it in the support somewhere in here. Use Blakebeard Stash and the Corsair and the Jack's Revenge, and just have a whole loadout full of pirates. And that could be a really, really fun way to go. But that is totally up to you guys. Now we're just having a ton of fun with it because, I mean, like I said, it's not a very serious build. So if you want to maximize your usefulness of these pirate llamas, you know, maybe make you not regret buying so many of these things, then this is a great loadout to make the most out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If any of these llamas come by again, you should feel free to use code Mista to check out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Any suggestions for future videos I should cover. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day. And then